when you come back to me, we're talking about state issues versus federal issues. So let's make that quick transition in our own minds. Utah is, I would say, significantly better off than the federal government in how we manage things. We actually balance our budget every year. We actually try to rein in our spending. For instance, last year, me and a bunch of other freshmen who shouldn't have the audacity to even conceive of such a thing went into each of the sub-appropriation committees looking for money to cut from our state budget, and we found $78 million to cut. But as is the situation, the Executive Appropriations Committee returned about $75 million of it. So the net effect was very little, about $3 million. So we're going to take up the fight again this year. As I was asked to come and speak to you today, one of the things that is near and dear to me and for which I have some experience in is information, data. What's being collected on you right now? How's that information being used? Okay, now if you look in the commercial industry of data, every single time you do a search on the internet, there are two groups of individuals who are collecting data on you. Number one, whichever search engine you use is looking to see what you search for, how often you search for it. Keystroke by keystroke, it looks to see what information you're consuming. The second group that is gathering information is once you actually hit the website you want to go to, that individual website, business or whatnot, is collecting information on you, keystroke by keystroke. Then if you have a need and you decide, I'm going to go ahead and purchase this, I'm going to go ahead and put my personal information in there, it's being collected, keystroke by keystroke. Why in the world would we think that if that's happening on the commercial side of things, it wouldn't be happening on the governmental side of things? Or in school with our children? Because it is happening that way. It is. And right now, FERPA, which is the federal regulation on records of students and how they must be managed, is wholly inadequate for safeguarding our children from this type of data collection and data mining. So as such, I have decided to run two pieces of legislation. The first is the Student Privacy Act, House Bill 68. House Bill 68 sets the guardrails on the sides of this data highway of what is appropriate and what is not. The bill directly addresses what information can be collected, how that information is going to be stored and secured, and then how that information is both accessed and shared, which are two different things. Access means they have had authority to go in and get it. Shared means they don't necessarily have legislative authority, statutory authority to go get it, but they are granted access by someone in the State Office of Education. So as we look at how the information is collected and how it's going to be used, it became very evident to me that parents don't know what's going on. They don't know what's being collected. They don't know how that information is being used. And they certainly never authorized the use or the collection of such information. Now think about this. When you go online to Amazon or to some other place and you're going to purchase something, e-commerce is what we call that. You enter in your credit card, the information is gathered. 99.9% of the time, at the bottom of that page, before you hit submit, it requires you to hit an acknowledgement security privacy agreement. When you go online and you are purchasing something from a commercial website, they basically say, this is the information we're gathering. This is how it's going to be secured. This is how it's going to be used. And in some instances, this is who we're going to share it with, like our affiliated companies. You must agree in order to continue with your purchase. Now, how many of you actually read that disclosure? Okay, I don't. I just be honest with you. I'm as guilty as anybody. But the point is, on the commercial side of it, they are giving you full notice and disclosure. Why on the education side of it are we not? So as part of this bill, House Bill 68, we are requiring a notice and disclosure that has to be signed by the legal guardian for a disclosure of all the information that is going to be collected and how that information is going to be shared, how that information is going to be secured. Anytime a child registers in our public education system, that notice and disclosure will be required to be signed and detailed. They're going to have to go through it. That's the parent and the legal guardian that would be signing those. Additionally, if your child has any special condition that might need an individualized education plan, an IEP, or maybe needing medication throughout the day, or maybe has had scuffles in the past and might have a disciplinary record, all of that has to be done with the authority of the parent. So the bill requires full disclosure, full notice. It needs to have authorization for any additional information. So in essence, we realized there were 3 buckets of information that needed or could be contemplated in being collected. Bucket number 1 was the allowable information. This was the information that, hey, if you're going to process your child through public education, this is the basic information you need in order to do it. Their name, their address, their legal guardian, whatnot. Then we have the second bucket, which was the optional information. And this is information that, let's say, gee, the federal government wants to know how much money you make. Why? What does that have to do with education? Well, you're going to participate in the school lunch program. Oh, okay. Yes, I do want to opt into that. Okay, sign here. Okay, the federal government wants to know more information on you about this or about that so that you can participate in this program or that program. Okay, it's disclosed to me. I understand what's going to be used. Okay, yes, I do want to opt into that. Or, heck no, I don't want that. All right, but then you don't participate in that program. The point is, we needed more transparency, more disclosure, more notification, and authorization obtained. The last bucket, which is what I call the prohibited bucket of information. This is information that I can't see any reason, rhyme, or understanding logically why this information would need to be collected. Like, what medications do your parents take? What does that have to do with education? Do your parents own firearms? What does that have to do with education? We need your social security number. Why? What does that have to do with education, especially when you're assigning me a public ID number, a public ed ID number? Why do you need my social? There's certain information that I just see there's absolutely no rhyme or reason to collect, so we threw it into the prohibited bucket. Now, that addresses, the Student Privacy Act addresses from kindergarten through 12th grade. But what happens when you graduate? Any of you ever heard of the longitudinal data? Do you even know what it is? Okay, I get a couple of nods out there. Longitudinal data is data mining at the highest level. Once you graduate from high school and you move on to, we presume, higher ed, and from there you move on to a job, and from there you start making serious money, we hope, and from there you kind of continue through your life. Well, there's a tremendous push from the federal government and from other state agencies to data mine this information. So in other words, we can show from the public ed information that you got test scores of X and Y in reading and math in 3rd grade. You got test scores of X and Y in reading and math in 8th grade. You went on to go to school to get your engineering degree. After that, you went and worked as a civil engineer for XYZ firm, making X amount of money. We can statistically show, now that we're looking at 3 million people throughout the state, that if you accomplish your test scores by here and here, that you'll go on to make this much money. You'll go on to do this, you'll go on to do that. Statistically, you have a 97% probability. So we're going to give you information along the way that is going to push you in those directions. Social engineering. The longitudinal data can be a powerful tool, but it can also be a horrendous a horrendous social engineering tool that can push our children in the future and policymakers' decisions in very much the wrong direction. Now, the argument is going to be on the longitudinal data. Let's go ahead and have this information robustly so that we can make the best decisions with our public dollars. And I agree with that. That makes sense. However, who's watching the watchers? We're creating, in essence, our own little NSA on a state level. And right now, it's happening organically with zero oversight. The Utah Data Alliance is where the longitudinal data is being accumulated and utilized. Right now, 3 major agencies in state government are utilizing it: public ed, higher ed, and Division of Workforce Services. And with that information, they go in, they look at what's, how does educational attainment level affect recidivism for law enforcement and whatnot. They'll go in and they'll do those studies and they'll take a look at it. But when I went in and started poking around and saying, hey, who do you answer to? What I got was, well, we answer to Judy Parks at State Office of Education. So I go to Dr. Parks and I say, okay, so who do you answer to? Well, actually, I could tell things were just right over her head. I was asking question after question, deer in the headlights. I said, so who do you actually talk to? Oh, I talked to Chris Winkler at UEN, which is the Utah Educational Network that houses the Utah Data Alliance. I went back to Chris Winkler and I said, so who do you answer to? Oh, I do whatever Judy Parks tells me to do. So is there any legislative authority on this? Well, no. In fact, when Gail and I went and met with them, we kept on saying, well, we want to change this and we want to change that. And they all went, wait, that's against state law. Really? Policymaker, we're going to change the law. Well, I don't think we can do that. Well, yeah, we can do that. It's called legislative authority. Right now, it's not overseen by either the executive or the legislative, except for in a long reach, legislative does fund it. But if I wanted to go and do an audit, there was no audit available. So the State Office of Education heard my rumblings, and in October, they decided to approve their very first IT audit of education. And that is happening right now. So the second bill, thank you. I am almost out of time, but the Longitudinal Data Management Act has yet to be assigned a bill number. So if you go online to try to find it, you won't find it there just yet. I'm in the final stages of working out the drafts with my drafting attorneys, but you need to know that this is something that is the highest priority to me right now, because you as parents need to be empowered with the proper information so that you can make the right decisions. I've often said that information precedes 99% of the time. Information precedes revelation. So if you are going to make the right decision, you have to have the facts and you have to have them in a way that helps you make the best decisions possible. So to that effect, we're working hard up there to keep you safe, to keep your kids safe. I could use your help. Contact your legislators and tell them this is something that they cannot punt down the road. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.